The US President Donald Trump claims his board of peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Palestinian Hamas militants and other armed groups in Gaza. In a post on Truth Social, Mr. Trump has called it a major milestone in the implementation of the Trump 20-point plan to end Israel's war in Gaza. Our America's Editor John Lyons joins us now from Washington. John, what exactly is in this deal and where do we park our expectations?
Well, Jeremy, it's quite vague. That's not unusual with Donald Trump. He's put out a short statement not long ago saying that his board of peace has come to an agreement for the complete disarmament of Palestinian Hamas militants and other armed groups in Gaza. And he says that the deal would be carried out in phases, with Israeli forces withdrawing as disarmament proceeds and an international stabilisation force working with a new Palestinian police force to secure the enclave. And he thanked the mediators, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey. But I think that we should take this with a certain amount of scepticism. This is the same president who more than 30 times has said that he's on the brink of ending the war in Iran. And there's no detail much here. And I think George Orwell from the famous 1984 novel would have a chuckle if he looked at this board of peace, because Donald Trump announced this big board of peace in January. He unveiled it. This was going to be Donald Trump's competitor or replacement for the United Nations. And even at the announcement of the Board of Peace, he said that within 10 days or so he would consider going to war with Iran. And within weeks of the establishment of this Board of Peace, he did decide to begin a major new war in the Middle East, of which the world is currently feeling the consequences. And I think George Orwell would think Board of Peace, unveiling, and then you declare a war, that the names are just getting replaced with each other. So let's hope that there is a disarmament in Gaza. Let's hope that this is the beginning of something more positive. But at that same unveiling in January, Donald Trump said this board of peace, which has people like Tony Blair on it, this is going to be involved in the reconstruction of Gaza. Any of the children at the moment in Gaza who can get no medical attention after 2 years of bombing, can barely get clean water or medications, would not be looking around the rubble. And that's what Gaza is now. It's essentially one large garbage pile, one large rubble. We can see from those pictures there. There ain't any reconstruction going on there at the moment. So when Donald Trump says these things, the world sort of jumps and talks about them all. But I never see much action out of what Donald Trump promises in these postings.
It would be helpful at this point to hear from Hamas, which is party to this purported agreement. Have they made any comment?
They've made no comment that I can see, and it's an interesting point, Jeremy. Not just Hamas, but from the time I've spent in Gaza, I've sort of done a study there of some of the Salafi groups that are part of Gaza as well. And apart from Hamas, there's about 8 or 9 other hardline groups. Some of them, believe it or not, are more hardline than Hamas. These Salafi groups, these extremist Islamist groups in the Gaza Strip. So when Donald Trump says that they've reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas militants and other armed groups in Gaza, my question to him would be, which other armed groups? And is he seriously saying that these 8 or 9 Salafi groups that are often more hardline than Hamas, that they have signed onto this agreement? There's really no detail at all to this. To me, it's classic Donald Trump, where he gets the headline, he talks about how he's brought yet another deal. He's often talking about how he should have got the Nobel Peace Prize, but there's so rarely detail. Let's hope that Hamas has agreed to this. Let's hope there is detail. But as so often the case with Donald Trump, it's the headline effect, it's the announcement, and within 24 hours, it disappears into the dust.
Let's say, best case scenario, Hamas has agreed to this proposal. Where does that leave Israel? Israel needs to have buy-in here as well, right?
Well, that's right. It's not just the United States, Donald Trump and Hamas. It is also Israel. Now, Israel has taken reported estimates of 50 or 60% of the Gaza Strip since the war began. They've now occupied that. They say they're doing that for security reasons to ensure that the atrocities that Hamas committed on October 7 can never happen again. So Israel says we need to set up a major buffer area inside Gaza, as they're saying they need to do in Lebanon, to ensure groups like Hamas and Hezbollah cannot get anywhere near their border and reduce the chances of them being able to do damage to Israeli civilians. But I haven't yet heard anything from Israel either. So, and I think the key phrase in this to me is that he says the deal will be carried out in phrases with Israeli forces withdrawing as disarmament proceeds. So if based on a lot of experience, you know, in the past in terms of Hamas and Israel, and I've covered 3 or 4 wars there between the two of them, I think what may well happen here is that Israel, even if Hamas does disarm to an extent, one of those other 9 Salafi groups may not disarm, and Israel may say, well, in fact, it was based on us withdrawing as disarmament proceeds, and we claim or we believe that Hamas continues, or these other groups continue to hide their weapons, and therefore we don't withdraw. And so let's hope that finally there could be an outcome, because I think for civilians in both Israel and Gaza, this is a dreadful situation. This is a dreadful war. And as always, it's the civilians. Look at the Israeli civilians on October 7. Look at the atrocities committed against those Israelis. And look at the atrocities that have been committed, those tens of thousands of women and children who've been killed by Israel since this war began. So let's hope that there's something to this deal. Let's hope. But the interesting thing is Donald Trump rarely follows up the next day with any detail. In fact, there's not much detail in this.
John Lyons reporting from Washington, D.C. John, thank you.